今のようなちょっと実語のようだけど、主体と見る、それは環境っていう違い的に、主体と環境との関係ができるようになって、ところがその主体と、環境というものが一つ互いに主体が環境というのを作る、環境が主体を作ると、そういうところに創造というのがある。
Zen was one of the main themes throughout Nishida's life. On discovering himself, Nishida came to Zen and nothingness. And in speaking of Zen and nothingness, he discovered himself. Nishida was born in 1870 in Ishikawa Prefecture, which situates in north-central Honshu Island. Daisetsu Suzuki, an introducer of Zen and Shin to the Occident, was a secondary school classmate. Nishida studied Zen under Setsumon Gensho. Setsumon Gensho is the monk who had received the Dharma transmission at Shokokuji, one of the most prominent Zen Buddhist centers situated in Kyoto. Gensho had once been a Kokutaiji temple kancho, or a Buddhist bishop in the Kanazawa area, where Nishida Kitaro had been living his secondary school life. At that time, Nishida Kitaro and Setsumon Gensho came to know each other. Nishida found Zen very attractive, but he denied being a Zen monk and tried to speak of himself by referring to Zen. In other words, he tried to discover himself and the philosophical being through Zen practice, and to describe Zen in philosophical terms, and vice versa. He tried to build a new thought through this procedure. In Zen, there are some famous sayings such as Totai Datsuraku, which means clear the body, drop things off. Kyakka Shoko, which means look under your feet. These are exactly what Zen is. In other words, these are Zen itself and what exactly Zen is. And Nishida pursues the possibility of thoughts as such by studying Western philosophy on one hand, and the methodology of Zen philosophy on the other. Nishida's struggle first bore fruit as a book, Zen no Kenkyu, an inquiry into the good. In actuality, Nishida lost two of his daughters just before publishing this book. It seems that some sort of resignation or determination had occurred in him through such misery. They are not literally written in the book, but we can obviously feel it through his words. After a few years, Nishida wrote in his essay, "What had moved me the most was the fact that my young daughters had died. What is life if those lovely speaking, charmingly singing children, playing just in front of me, suddenly disappear and are put into tiny graves as only a few bones? Life is nothing if life is only such a thing. There must be some meaning here." Life would be what he thinks. If sadness was the only thing he had withdrawn from life, life would just be sadness. But can it be so? There might be some more things hidden in life and what he had lost. This obligation to find something there led him to the foundation of his unique philosophy. One of Nishida's main ideas was to overcome the subject-object distinction of Western philosophy. What Nishida was paying attention to was the consciousness prior to differentiating a subject and an object experience, which he called Junsui Ishiki, or pure consciousness at the time. it was an arduous effort to comprehend and describe. Taking a look at an infant can give a good example of it. We can say that a subject and object experience is not yet differentiated in an infant's crying and mumbling. It has not yet found itself. However, it starts to say pa and ma and gradually begins to call itself me. A subject and object experience starts to differentiate. Self-identification and identity start to sprout as itself starts building up. Unfortunately, we tend to forget about these facts prior to self-identification and start our experiences upon concrete selves. Studying the philosophy of Nishida obliges us to reflect upon our selves in life in such a way. After Nishida retired from the chair of the Department of Philosophy of Kyoto University in 1928, he started to pass his summers and winters in Kamakura. It has inspired him to have some new ideas and visions. He presents his ideas successively as Ippansha no Jikaku-teki Taikei, the self-aware system of universals in 1930, and as Muno Jikaku-teki Gentei, the self-aware determination of nothingness in 1932. In the latter, he argues that basho, or topos, which is one of his key concepts especially in his late years, are a place that both subject and object are enacting and correlating as a whole. Nishida concentrated on this, his signature theory of topos, to his death, and developed it as nothingness, or mu, absolute nothingness, zettai mu. What he had stated within the contrast of the subjective being in ontology was a significance of this topos and nothingness, which may be called meontology. Nishida then focused on enacting correlations within the topos of absolute nothingness. Koiteki chokan, or action intuition, is the phrase he describes it with. He gradually starts to think about the energy that generates in a place and the effect that is active while someone is acting. In this way, Nishida reaches his maturity, and the phrase zettai mujun-teki jiko doitsu, the self-identity of absolute contradictories, marks the essence of his thought. With the self-identity of absolute contradictories, in general, self-identity is a state where logic is clarified by means of a solid united self. In other words, it is believed as a condition that the contradictories are being overcome and therefore the contradictory have disappeared. However, what Nishida had said was the self-identity of absolute contradictories is a relation of the being and the world where contradictories are absolute as such and beings are related as a whole in self-identity. Daisetsu Suzuki, Nishida's lifetime friend, has called this sokuhi logic. Sokuhi, which literally means A is A because A is not A, is a saying that is very difficult to grasp. In general, is becomes yes, or it is. However, he states it as A is A because A is not A. So what does is not mean? The thought could come to a halt right there, but it is at this point that absolute affirmation takes place, which was quite similar to and was also deemed sokuhi logic by Suzuki, but slightly differed from Nishida's self-identity of absolute contradictories.
それは全ての人間はそれはできるわけなんだ。できるから、それで全ての人間は創造性を持っているわけ。ところがその、そういう世界と環境とのこう一つになっている世界、一つなる世界っていうものが、その時代全体の一つのこの傾向を持っている。その傾向に向かって進んでいっているからね。それがその歴史的世界の創造。そこにその創造を助けていくと、その創造に向かっていくということが、それが別の人間の尊くない別の文化っていうものの目的を説明するんだ。こういうことです。だってそれは創造っていうことは誰でもできるから、それでその、この人間は創造性で動物と違うという。だから人間のこの目的が創造にあるということは、全て人間ができなきゃいけない。